Hey now, it is Dan Aberhart here, and welcome to the Growing the Future podcast, where we talk to folks who like to innovate, collaborate, and transform the agricultural industry. Thanks so much for joining us for Season 6, Episode 2. I've got a very interesting individual here on the show today that's built an excellent company that I've very much been an admiration for a very long time. So I'm personally excited to talk to him about his personal and professional journey in agriculture. But before I introduce today's esteemed guest, I would like to remind you to check out Aberhart Family of Companies online if you'd be so kind. You can see aberhartfarms.com, where this individual's helped them be successful with his products and practices. We feed the world out of Langeberg, Saskatchewan there. Suregrowth.ca, where we offer precision agronomy consulting services, of which we'll talk a little bit about agronomy today. This individual is well-versed in that whole world. Convergencegrowth.com, where we accelerate solutions across food, health, and agriculture. We've got a conference coming up. We'll talk about that. And AberhartAgSolutions.ca, where we deliver one-of-a-kind fertility solutions of the future to your farm. You can get notified about our new episodes by signing up for our newsletter at growingthefuturepodcast.ca. My next guest has been a trailblazer in the world of agriculture, and he is a driving force behind Taurus. Since its inception in 2001, he is the president and founding partner of Taurus. From day one, his passion has been unwavering to empower growers by demystifying the whys between the hows and agriculture. He does not believe in feet up on the desk business. Instead, it's all about boots on the ground, working closely with agribusinesses and manufacturers to align products and services with the needs of growers in the Canadian and global marketplace. Today, he's also active on the 5th generation family farm in Virden, Manitoba. Today, I'm anxious to pick his brain about how he got started and the growth of his company. A lot of what the company's been involved with. I mean, they have a plethora of products and practices that are very interesting, cutting edge, and where he sees things going. I mean, I don't know where this conversation is going, but I think it's going to be very interesting. So welcome to the show, Craig Davidson, president and founding partner of Taurus.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having us. Yeah, this is good. I've known you for a long time.
Well, we had a really good excuse to chat here because we've got this upcoming Convergence conference, which you guys are a sponsor of, and have a few folks speaking at with some of your technology, and we'll get to that. But when I thought of doing this podcast with you, one of the things I was thinking about is, who is Craig Davidson, and how did he get his start to being such a magnate in profitable products for the farming practices in Western Canada here and beyond? Tell us about yourself, Craig.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Start right at the beginning.
Yeah, I was gonna say
like first memory here.
Bold intro, but yeah, I'm a guy. The humble beginnings part is still hopeful.
Humble. You're humble.
Yeah, stay who I am, but yeah, you know what? I'm a Western Manitoban farm kid, I guess you'd say. That's where I was born and raised. Grew up on a dairy farm, actually, dairy and livestock, and I think that if you look at your start in life, I mean, for me, it was the idea of what a hard day's pay looked like, and my parents hardworking people, and very humble, and enjoy society as a whole. I still today, they're great people that they just love the companionship and friendship, and yet they know where a dollar comes from. And I think that for me, as a starting point, you'd say, it's like if I lost everything today, if I lost it all, like I make some bad decisions, there's no doubt. I could still go back to a fork in my hand, forking shit out of a calf barn, if that's what I had to do, because I loved it. It's like I just loved the idea of accomplishing something. There's a job to do. Go do your job. Could I do it quicker? Could I get it done quicker? How hard would I have to work to get that accomplished? And as a baseline in your life, you kind of say, I still have that as a fundamental part of what I do every day, is like, there's a job to do. Let's go do it. How can we do it better? And that's kind of my connection to agriculture. And I love the farm. I love the idea of taking something and growing it, whether it's a crop or an animal or even an idea, a vision. That to me is all that conductivity between all that is very much the same for me in my life. And so, yeah, as a baseline, connects us to agriculture. It connects us to people like yourself that are passionate about changing a space and having the opportunity to work with people to find that change and never go back to the way it was before. To me, that's, if you can get to that part of your life, you just say, holy cow, you forget about the challenges and you just, you focus on the opportunities that are coming your way.
What does that look like today? Do you still get to fork some shit? And it must be kind of nice where I think a business like ours, which is somewhat similar, although you're far in advance of us, but sometimes it's like pushing on a string, right? So sometimes maybe to fork some shit, it's just probably therapeutic.
100%. Yeah, you'd say.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're human. The comforts of life is what makes us probably die quicker. So anything we can do to be active, it's like I'm almost embracing the opportunity to find activity in my life too. But yeah, the analogy of forking shit, yeah, we still call it getting in the trenches and figuring out things that a lot of people won't take the time or effort to do, is kind of how we operate and live our lives today. And yeah, if I get a chance to go put a fork in my hand and appreciate some of the finer things I've accomplished in my life, that's one way to do it. Right. So,
well, I grew up with dairy too, but of course those days are gone. The business has evolved. But what does the farm look like today, and who's doing the farming, and how are you involved?
Yeah, I think my math's right there. But
well, we'll get the fact checkers working on that.
Yeah. Still small farm. Today we'd be mostly we run yearling heifers. Actually, we buy them from kind of past customers when we were in the purebred beef business, and a fair bit of our land is kind of transitionary land from valley, side hill, more bushland, and then it transitions into cropland. So cattle are still a part of what we do in the summertime, and the cropland we have, we crop share that with some local farmers that put that in, and obviously we love growing crops, so it's an opportunity for us to work alongside some neighbors and friends that hopefully do a good job of farming our land. And so I get involved in that regard. But yeah, it's still a passion of mine. I want to see that grow and succeed, and not really any desire to hand it off to somebody other than the family that has had it for 138 years, right? So that's, I think we're proud of that. And my mom and dad are retired, but they still moved to the farm in the summer, and they're involved in helping manage the yearling heifers that we breed and sell as bred heifers. So it's a great opportunity to connect with your parents. You kind of say it's like, you think of the industriousness or the technology that comes, and yet sometimes your greatest connection to what you do is an opportunity to work with family, right? And it's say, I don't know if I need to do that anymore because I got lots of stuff on the go. But when it's an opportunity to actually continue on with your parents that are moved on in their life, and yet they still enjoy it, and you have a chance to spend days with them and have those connections, you say, when it's all said and done, maybe that's all that matters. Maybe that's all that really matters, is an opportunity to connect with people that you enjoy and love and share experiences with. And so, yeah, that's kind of what our operation looks like. That's under Black Sand Cattle Company today, the farm. But yeah.
I'm kind of imagining you like Kevin Costner leaning over the fence in Yellowstone, kind of, protecting
Right.
the kingdom,
Right.
Giving out the odd order here and there, just for
No
preservation, but
no horses. Yeah. Quads.
not a true cowboy.
Yeah. No. That's why I keep telling my friends that are cowboys. I'm the only one that actually owns cows. How can you call yourself cowboys? I'm the only one.
This is backwards.
Yeah, you should be called horse bulls.
I have not seen you in a cowboy hat.
One day.
I'm not seeing you on a horse, but
One day.
It's always retirement.
Yes, could be. I could get back to that 100%.
I sense that probably sometime you might, but I also sense that there's a huge drive to keep doing what you're doing, because I heard the other day, quite publicly, that you said that Taurus has over 45 products, which just sort of sent me reeling, because the scope of that is just like, wow, like how does he, manage 45 products in a day? I'm managing one and I feel, really busy. But tell me, how did you transition? How did you transition in your career from being this young guy on the farm to being the president of Taurus? What happened in there? What was the journey?
Well, I worked for a farm out of high school for 2 or 3 years, and then I felt like I needed to get some secondary education. So I did go back to school, and through that process, it got me connected into the crop input side of agriculture. So I worked retail before that, ag retail, and then I started out west in Calgary with a sulfur manufacturer as a summer student, and that was back in the, not to date myself, but like the mid '90s, and it really opened my eyes.
Were you in that canola crop with those guys standing there naked in that famous advertisement that Chris Patterson? Because you guys all worked at Tiger Cell. Hey?
I was one of the naked guys back in the day. Yeah, hard to believe. Yeah, you'd say, oh, it's like if you ever had any inhibitions, and you're like me, I'm kind of an introvert. It was like that's right then you kind of had to let that go, right? You're like,
how did you measure up? Were you comfortable where you came in?
I was fine myself. I wasn't. I didn't know for sure, but once we got our clothes off, I'm all good with the whole process. And yeah, it was good. But yeah, no, it was a great group of guys, like a great group of people that were all at the same stage of their careers, starting out. And Tiger was a company that was trying to take their business abroad, and so they would parachute us in across different locales across North America, and it was a great opportunity to meet some really cool people and get to know the industry better. And it kind of led to myself and another guy by the name of Darren Bryant, who's from where I live now. We kind of grew up close to one another and got to know each other as we got to our adult lives. But yeah, it created this business opportunity to say, geez, there's a lot of companies that have great technology or great solutions that actually wanted to get back to Canada, and that's where we were from, and we were traveling North America, and Darren was actually traveling the world for Tiger at the time, and we're like, maybe there's a business opportunity. And at the time, I've said it before, but agriculture wasn't as, call it, sexy as it is today, or exciting with profit to be made. It was tough. Nobody wanted to farm. Land prices weren't great. There was land being rented for just the taxes, and we're like, let's start a business in agriculture. This is a great time.
Seems like a great industry. Everybody's broke, and nothing but complaints. But
what wasn't out of style is that when things are tougher, people are looking for ways to do it better. Yeah. And so it created this opportunity for us to find some innovation further abroad, bring that back to our market that we knew very well. And that was kind of the start of Taurus 23 years ago. So it
23.
Yeah.
2001.
Yeah.
What was special about that time? Because I know so many guys in the industry like yourself that have gone on to be super successful, different capacities. I think Rob Sake worked there, Chris Patterson, Jeff Ivan. Who am I missing? I mean, there's just a ton of guys that work there.
Yeah, Derek Buford. We lost Derek. He's passed. But
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know what? It was. I'm not. It's hard to say. It was a lot of, because you're unhindered. You're just basically go figure it out. It kind of created this group of people that kind of then went on to live their lives with the philosophy of go figure it out. And what's the downside? You got nothing to lose. I mean, you stumble and fall, get back up, and there'll always be another path to get on, or the path you're on may work out. And it kind of set us all on this, this journey of agriculture that kind of went in different directions. But for us, back to my roots, I love growing something. I love the idea of taking something from nothing and making it productive, or taking something that's good and making it better. And so for us, agronomy and fertility became the baseline for Taurus, because we love the idea of growing a better crop. And that today still holds true for us years and years and years later. But it obviously the technology's changed. The agronomic solutions have probably become more defined or more robust or more encompassing. But yeah, that part of what we started with is still in our DNA today, or in our genes. Yep.
Well, I know the company's evolved, as I said. I mean, you've got a lot of different products now, and you have some roots in the manufacturing and stuff like that. And we'll talk about some of that stuff. But what specifically was the business opportunity? You saw some companies that maybe weren't connected to the market in a way that you thought they could be, or you wanted to keep it more local, or you want to bridge that gap with marketing and sales. What was your eureka moment when you guys got started out in the company?
I think as an industry, I think it's been a driver of the industry in the last 30, 40 years, because agriculture has become part of life. I mean, like commercial agriculture, there's a drive to commoditize. There's a drive to commoditize the space that we're in. And so everybody, the industry wanted it to be streamlined, so it fit everybody. And then all of a sudden growers jump on board and they just want it to be easy. They want it to be buy the cheapest ton, or, the cheapest product, whatever. I'm not saying cheap, but I'm just saying commoditization was definitely a focus, and still is. And for us, we found that there may be an opportunity to turn and go the other way and say, let's just look for value. Let's focus on a value equation, something that's maybe not going to broad base or broad brush the market, but something that actually brings definable value. We might ask somebody to invest more time or effort or brain power, or we might ask somebody to invest more dollars financially, but the goal was always to say, is there a better outcome at the end? And so it kind of put us into this box. Maybe it's a little smaller box, that became the early innovators, the early adopters. It kind of led us to working closer with agronomic consultants that actually wanted to make a difference on the farms that they serviced, or the acres that they serviced. And so then we were kind of saying, well, what can we find that is not commoditized, but is very exciting, and maybe requires a little more definition, to actually then find these progressive growers that actually want to be better at what they do. And that became a bit of a start of our business. And it wasn't, not for the faint of heart. It wasn't the early days. You're like, holy geez, what did we do here? Like, this is not easy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was it like in the early days of Taurus with you and Darren, sharing a sleeping bag and a Super 8 or something like your.
Yeah, well, I was in. Yeah, it got to that pretty well, actually. Yeah, we were like super
pretty
single,
close.
Super single. That's all we could afford. But he was in Alberta. I was in Manitoba, and we tackled Western Canada. You say, why are we chewing off Western Canada as a starting point? But we'd hit, and we had some relationships. And honestly, I'd say that for me, call it 30 years into this side of my work life, it's like the part I still enjoy is the fact that you can still have a relationship. Right? Mm-hmm. You can build a relationship, and you can earn somebody's trust. And when you come with a new idea or concept, they are prepared to listen or hear you out. And so for us, it was the early days. It's like we're trying to leverage the relationships we had to at least get somebody's ear to hear us out and say, what do you think about this? And that was the starting point. We were able to get some products, some innovations into some key hands that then were leveraging their relationships to get it to the farm. And 23 years ago, we didn't necessarily work as close with farmers as we do today, but and we still, obviously, our retail relationships are key, our consultant relationships are key, and today our grower relationships are key to finding products into the right hands. But it wasn't, by no means, there was definitely days and weeks where you're like, oh, I don't know. It's like, we got bills to pay. Are you going to eat today, Darren, or am I going to eat today?
Splitting the bean.
Split the bean, yeah. But, it's, once you kind of I always tell people that are starting out in business, if you can find a way to get through that first 12 months, find your way to 18 months, you start to find some solidity. And for us, getting a couple years in, we started to get some companies and products that were maybe a little more like they had done some of the research themselves, or they had done some of the background work, to whereas when we brought it on, it wasn't like right from zero. It was actually, there was some stuff we could leverage. And when we got there, then all of a sudden it started to scale a little bit quicker, because we weren't doing all the work. We were doing some of the work in our market, but some of the baseline work was already established, and that, that allowed us to maybe fast track it year 2, year 3, where we were then having some commercial success. Like we were generating enough revenue to actually say, we'll pay the bills. Like we're in a good spot, and let's start looking for innovations that we think could fit our market. And it started to grow from there. But it, by no means was it easy, and by no means do you actually knock it out of the park in every situation. Like we just didn't. Like we were still dealing with an industry that was fundamentally tight. The money was tight, and you just had to find those right relationships to get it in the right hands. So, yeah.
So you started out with a marketing contract for Tiger Sol, essentially in Western Canada.
Not initially, but a year or two, and then we worked for Tiger previously, and then we went on to work for another sulfur company, initially as Taurus, not Tiger, and we came back to Tiger 3-4 years after we started. Yeah,
because I was kind of wondering when you realized that this thing might be scalable, like that, or did you always start out with the end in mind that, hey, we're going to have a portfolio of products, we're just going to do it the Taurus way?
Yeah, I would say when we actually got our first agreement with a bigger company, like a company that was multi-billion dollars, that kind of came and said, we don't need you because we know how to make money, but we've brought an innovation or a solution that is not commoditized. It's got some value in it, so we need to figure out how to sell it, because everybody that's selling commodities doesn't want to sell something that's value add, because it's a whole separate conversation. And when we got to that point, we're like, hey, this business model is legit. There is absolutely, if we could take a company that's already making billions, and they're coming to us saying, do you know how to position this product? And we're like, we're going to try. We will try. We will try to figure it out. We'll try to.
Come on, you must have given them something better than that. Not the good old like, well, I'm just going to farm boy here from Virden. I'll try. There's no guarantee, but because all these companies, they want. Well, I guess it's different on the commodity side, but they all want numbers. How much? How much are you going to sell?
Yeah, and I think for us, probably where we start with anything, like back then or even today, where we start with is agronomy. If we could understand the science behind the product, how does it work scientifically, then where does it fit agronomically? And we were fortunate in the early days. We had an agreement with a lab, A&L Labs, so they were relatively new to Western Canada, and we took them on and really helped grow that business across a broad geography. And it really allowed us then to work with some top people that had brilliant minds around agriculture, and I'm like, holy cow, we were learning at the same time that we were actually introducing an agronomic service, right? We were just providing the service, but it allowed us to work with some brilliant minds really in the space. And it really opened us up then to say, okay, well, they keep telling us when we see this type of agronomic scenario, we need a better solution. We need a better solution to fit this void that we have a better understanding of due to the understanding of the soil and the plant. And so that for us became a conductivity point to say, oh, now let's find the solution that this group of customers are saying they need, basis the science of the soil or what the plants are saying. And that opened us up into some great solutions by leveraging the agronomy of it all from a soil science perspective. And we went on to spend 18 years representing an analytics company, A&L Labs, and there's nothing but praise to that relationship we had, and it still becomes the foundation of how we think every day, and really allows us to vet through agronomic solutions that we look at. At any given day, I may have 8 or 10 different things that I'm looking at that may become commercial, but maybe one of them ever actually get to the cutting room floor, right? So it's but we always leverage the science of it all, the agronomy of it all, to say, does it fit? Does it make sense? What is it going to do to the soil? What's it going to do to a plant? Can we find a way where growers can actually then make money off this? And if we can't get there, you move on and look for the next.
I feel like saying you're one lucky bugger. When I actually think about the evolution of your company and having a data-driven analytics, science company that can verify the agronomy of these products that you're working with. I mean, being enmeshed with that company, marketing what they do to verify some of the products that you're working with. But I want to say you're lucky, but it's likely, where hard work meets luck, I guess. But that must have been, just like you say, that must have been instrumental, because I think part of the challenge for us as input providers, so to speak, and for producers, is to figure out like how to discern from all this noise what can actually turn a buck.
Yeah.
And I know you have other metrics beyond agronomy, and we'll get to that, but like, wow, that's a great opportunity. I never thought of that with A&L Lab. Like, that must have shaped who you guys become on the agronomy side.
Yeah, they were definitely, they were leaders in that space because they were challenging the status quo. They weren't just comfortable with what was available in the analytical world. It was like, how do we learn more about our soil? What are the dynamics that allow growers to make better decisions? And so, and not to say that it was bang on every time, but at the same time, every time you push past the point of comfort, you're always going to learn. You're always going to find something you didn't know. And a lot of times that probably comes from the first time it was a mistake. And so then you learn from that. It's like, people always get hung up on doing something that doesn't work out. I'm like, if you look at it correctly, that there's nothing but learnings to be had from that. Okay. And then you take that and you move forward. That was, the hardest mistakes are the ones you learn over and over again. So you try not to make that same mistake twice, but at the same time, we have a vibrant industry, and we have, some of the best innovation in the world coming out of Canada, because individuals were prepared to push past the point of comfort and challenge the status quo and learn something new. And even though it maybe didn't work out 2 and 3 and 4 years later, you've probably figured out a new way to do things, and you're better for it, right? So we don't want to lose sight of that. I always say I think as you get older, you kind of, by nature, from your experiences, you end up being a little more conservative in your life and in your decision making. But probably one of the greatest assets you have in the early days is to be a bit naive. If you can be a bit naive, you're probably going to find yourself in spots where I didn't know better. I didn't know any better. And it's like, but I learned.
Yeah.
I learned.
Yeah.
And we were really naive in the early days, and it kind of, we've seen our way through it, and it allowed us to, build a pretty stable and successful business, decades later. So
how do you build a criteria around what to bring to the market in terms of what has value and what doesn't?
Yeah, I think that's, as we, maybe 20 years ago, it was different than it is today. It's just like food on the table. I think we can sell some of this stuff. Today, it's like, there's a process we go through. We want to understand the agronomy. We want to understand the science behind how it works. Like you said, the whys behind the hows. We're fortunate to have people in our business that have, a long history of working with growers and retailers and consultants to vet something out. So we leverage Mike Dolinsky a fair bit. Mike's been around for 50 some years in agriculture, and he's a very critical thinker that allows us to, say, is this agronomic solution or this product have a fit? And he'll look at the science of it all and try to understand what it's actually doing to a plant, or what it's doing in the soil, or what it could do to the biology. And so we'll spend a year or two usually vetting something out before we actually get to a point where we're going to actually implement it as a commercial good in the market today. And even then, we usually walk before we run. So we try to get it into hands of individuals that also understand the whys, or they can understand the whys behind the house. So we make sure that they put it in the right spots, and then go from there. Once we start finding success, then we'll usually try to start working that across a broader market. But it's a lot slower than maybe most people would think. Even some of the new stuff we're doing today, it's like you'd say, well, we do believe it's disruptive, but it might take us 5, 6, 7 years to get it to full commercialization. You say that's disruptive, but that's if you do it right, it does take time, because we're not looking to leverage growers and put them in compromising situations. I mean, we want to see them have additional success. So we're trying to keep that at the forefront.
Yeah. How heavy does logistics weigh? Because it just seems, man, it doesn't matter how great this and that, it's got to work for a producer to get it done in an average day. And we know how hard they work and how busy they are, how long the days are. Like, it's got to be worth it throwing something in the tank or adding that blend or whatever.
Right. Well, as you know, you can have some great agronomics, great solutions, but I mean, you can't disconnect them. You cannot disconnect agronomics and logistics in today's world. I mean, when you look at the scale of farming, and even on the intensity acres that we have in our market, specialized crops, you just say you do not want to sacrifice somebody's time logistically. We got to get it done. We have 100 days in this market to grow a crop. And if you lose a day or two, you'd say nobody has that opportunity to get those back. So it's as much as I love agronomy and agronomic solutions, a big part of our days are now spent on logistics, figuring out we want to position more, sell more. How do we get that to the market effectively? How do we get it, to the farm? How does it work on the farming operation? Are these air seeders and sprayers and all this technology we have there, can they do it? Can they variable apply a product that, all these questions you got to answer. And that's part of the vetting out process. Like, even I've seen some great technologies. Even we thought like we got it all right of the market, and we could not get it to go through a piece of equipment. And you're like, well, that was too bad, because it absolutely is going to bring.
Could have been great.
Yeah. So logistics will always be the trump card in every situation. And so I think sometimes companies have to figure that out too. Like, if all you're focused on, if you're a startup tech company and all your focus is on your technology or your agronomic fit, and you don't put enough effort into logistics, chances are most of those companies will get burned, or they'll have to figure out how to take a couple steps back to figure out what actually matters at the farm level. And that's if you're customer centric, if you're grower centric, then that usually is part of your first swipe, is you're actually saying, okay, wait a minute, I got 12-inch spacing and a 3/4 inch opener, and this guy's got 10-inch spacing and 2-inch opener, and this guy's got a Tobian, and this guy's got a liquid, and all these questions. You say, holy geez, there's so much variability across the market when it comes to delivery. You got to think your way through all those scenarios.
Isn't that part of your role, though, Craig, with Taurus, is to help those companies understand, okay, you got a great idea, you got great science, you got great agronomy, but this is a reality when it hits the ground in Western Canada. This is what it's going to be like when the bullets fly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm the guy with a fork in my hand, right?
Yeah.
So it's like and a number of our people in Taurus, we got a great group of people that have just a tremendous passion for agriculture. But a lot of our folks are practical thinking people. They're actually because they've lived through the challenges of a product not working or handling well. So we're the ones out there, you know, in the trenches banging on a bin or, you know, figuring out how to get the meter to turn. You know, that's because when you live it, you definitely, it does harden you off a little bit to say, yeah, we got to have this figured out on this next one we bring. Because if we don't,
Yeah.
it's the same mistake twice mindset, right? So
Just like when you talk about getting older,
Yeah.
you don't need to do that 2 or 3 times because you already felt the pain once.
yeah, but that is, I think some of the technology that's been most profound in agriculture in the last 10 or 15 years has been built around logistics, you know, including product solutions, like just saying we've figured out how to do this better logistically. And all of a sudden that's disruptive. It's like you focused on the logistics of it all, which kind of became what really mattered to the grower. Cause it's like, I want to farm another 1,000 acres, but I have no more people to do it. So how do I do it? Well, I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to add a piece of equipment to put it on in a time when I'm not busy, or, you know, it's spring. So impactful. Every day is precious. And, so yeah, there's innovation in all different packages. And sometimes the innovation actually comes in logistics. And that's sometimes when we look at what we do, some of our greatest success came down to the fact that we brought some logistical efficiency to the table, not just agronomics. And yeah.
I think it'd be your job also not only to simplify things for the manufacturer, but for the producer. How do you simplify things for a producer and a retailer when you have this extensive product portfolio? And I know there's good reasons for having it. But that's really, I mean, I look at that and I go, wow, like you're going to sit down. Of course, it's relationships. You're going to sit down with somebody. Where do you start? How do you bring the right things forward at the right time and the right proportions to make money?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I'm listening very intently right now.
Some days
because for my company, right? I mean, this is sort of Mecca. How do we expand our portfolio
right
to be like Craig Davidson when I grow up?
I think it's maybe almost, I mean, you look at, say, Taurus, so you look at what we do and you say, yeah, we got a portfolio of agronomic solutions. But it's almost the opposite. Like if we actually did our job properly, I'd say we should be more focused and caring about our customer. So it's more about us just asking questions. Honestly, if we did our job correctly, we just say, don't worry about what we have. We're more focused on understanding what you're doing and what some of the limitations you have in your business. And, you know, what is your agronomic focus and how do you help growers be better at what they do? And so if we took it that way, it's a little easier for us then to compartmentalize what the initial opportunity may be, you know, what call it the round peg into the round hole to start with. And once you get involved at that level, then in all reality basis experience, you probably find that there's other things that probably can fit. You know, you just had to spend more time in the relationship to uncover that next opportunity, right? So it's usually we start pretty small, like on 1 or 2 things, and then try to focus on doing a really good job there, making sure growers are seeing value, and over time it can evolve into other things. But never have we ever had success trying to sell somebody 45 things at the same time. That's
a great answer. That is a great, because I was wondering how do you, and it's a perpetual problem, but I could see that you're just making these things tools to help the producer. You know, you're providing a solution.
It's our job to find the fit, right? And that's us working with our customers to best understand what they're doing. But nothing fits everywhere. I mean, I hate to say it as a sales guy. You just say, well, everything's going to fit, but it doesn't. I mean, it's just farmland's different, soil types, growing conditions, environment, operations, the way they make decisions, where they're putting their capital, all those things that will influence what product has the right fit at the right time and the right spot. So, yeah.
I'm not an 18th century mathematician, but I can guess it's still the good old 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle that comes into play, where 20% of your stuff gets 80% of the job done, or 80% of your revenue or whatever. Although some of those other things probably have a fit some of the time, and they're nice to have to cover off that relationship. Like, oh, I have that too, or I can help you with this too.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
we, like I said, we're opposite of commodity, we're value add, but at some point in time, if a product finds its legs, eventually you'll move out of the early innovators and you start getting into the early majority type of growers. And when we get there, then the product starts to gravitate closer to commodity, essentially, right? I mean, as it scales and gets bigger volume, then but most of what we do, we find we have lots of opportunity inside, 20% of the market today, that is the progressive thinking space. And someday we'll maybe gravitate into that next percentage of the market, but it's for now we're happy trying to continue to uncover the right fit on the right acre here and on the growers that actually want to do better and be better. And there's you think of it, it's amazing when you get across the market how many progressive thinking individuals there are that absolutely love what they do and they want to be better. They want to be better at what they do. They want to have an impact for their farm. They want to be successful financially, but they also want to carry this on for another generation. And they know if they continue to make poor decisions that it may not be there for the next generation. So
if in the product journey that product that you're representing to the market becomes commoditized, is your job then done, theoretically? Because you've had this happen.
Yeah.
You're that good. I mean, you've had a few things. Oh, they're going off to college. Oh, now they got their own career. They're moving out, honey. You're getting kind of an empty nester with some products, right?
Yeah, our life cycle has definitely shown us that. I mean,
you don't have to name any names, but you could.
I'll tell a story about like ESN. We were part of ESN in the early days with Agrium. It's no longer Agrium; it's Nutrien, and it was a very expensive nitrogen unless you understood the value of slowing down that nutrient. And you had to get into the fit, and you had to get into understanding how nitrogen. It's kind of funny. It's even today there's a lot of focus on nitrogen and nitrogen management. You say, well, it's been around for 50, 60, 70 years. We should have it dialed in. And yet it's like, we're still learning about this nutrient on how to manage it and how to get of what you apply into the plant. And now it's all about the environment. We don't want any turning into a nitrous oxide gas. And, back in those days, I can't even say we knew all that stuff. We weren't even talking about nitrous oxide, but we knew that there was potential loss. And, we spent the next 5-6 years taking that from a small product to becoming, commercially accepted across a broad market for a multitude of reasons, from seed safety to season-long feeding to just even making, this is where the logistics come in, just making the blend store better. You say, I'm spending all this money just to make sure my fertilizer store is better in a bin. That's what 6 out of 10 growers told us. They just wanted
it. Priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get it out of the bin.
And then at that point, it's like, well, you've done your job. Now we got to market. We're taking that back and we're doing it ourselves. And it kind of got us into the next phase of our business where it's like, if we found something we really, really, really liked, we wanted to own part of it. We wanted to sink our teeth into it to actually make sure that we could, get on the ride and stay on the ride all the way through to full on commercialization. And it hasn't always worked out that way, but at the same time, that is part of what we do today. Is if we really find something that like we truly believe in and we see it's going to be an early majority, late majority type of product, then we want to be around to be able to develop that all the way through.
That's fantastic. That's a great evolution. Um, so what were some of the bigger innovations, Craig? You mentioned ESN, that whole space. What were some of the bigger innovations that you're super proud of when you think back on your career that you've had, been pretty instrumental in bringing to producers?
That's a good question, Dan.
Greatest hits here.
Oh,
Taurus,
geez,
greatest hits. Let's do it.
set me up.
Greatest hits album. Yeah, this is starting to sound like a commercial, but I'm genuine and my curiosity about how you build a company like this.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I would say, yeah, I would say it's not, we've had success with different product solutions along the way. But it's all how you define it, because even today, like when you look at what we're doing, chances are in the space that we're in, we're already working with growers that are already hugely successful, or they're already kind of leading the market when it comes to yields through good years and bad years. Like they've taken the valleys out of the equation, and the peaks get higher and higher. And so it's like you're saying, well, I'm having huge wins. And that's like, for us, you have to be satisfied by finding a bushel or two. And it's like, it's almost, when you look back and say, what was the greatest success? And like, in most all cases, like if I found a bushel or two with a product, it was like a huge win, but it's really hard to talk about as a huge success because we didn't really change it that much. But over the course of 10 years, if we've only ever added to the top line and in yield and helped maximize the bottom line in profit, then it's a whole bunch of little things, right? And sometimes it's not just us. It's like us working with like-minded companies that have great solutions. And when you put two and two together, it's not four, it's five, right? So it's, we're all for that. If we can find things that we don't even do, but we know that can bring value to growers, sometimes that's just that grower being happy and successful and farming more acres and in calling us at the end of the day. It's 10 o'clock at night, and it's like, what do you think about this? And like, to me, that might be the most gratifying, is because you've earned the trust through all these things that you've brought over the years, and you are the last call. And if you asked any one of our folks and you said, what is your greatest joy out of this, is if they get to the point of being the last call, because you've earned somebody's trust through bringing innovations that may or may not work. That then has allowed us to pave a business that's become, successful because we become trusted, and it makes it easier then to bring the next product because you're trusted. So it might be that more than it is an individual product solution. It's the fact
you're so humble. You're so humble. Okay.
No.
A&L marketing, soil testing, and tissue testing. I mean, you guys had a profound impact in the market on that. Elemental sulfur. You've obviously done a tremendous amount of education in that realm. And of course, you got other forms of sulfur. We can't talk about that here at Aberhart Ag because,
Yeah.
people sometimes ask me, isn't he a competitor? And I actually don't really see it like that. But,
No.
Talk about ESN too, right? That was a really big thing in the market. Then crystal green. That's a big one. I mean, we're like Boston here. We're playing a few of the hits, come on, you can share.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's
Pretty illustrious career.
Yeah, you know what? It's actually, when you start thinking about decommoditizing the industry we're in, and you'd say, what do consumers want? Like, what do consumers really want? At the end of the day, I don't think they know for sure. They just want to be healthy. Like, forget about organic, whatever. Most consumers, including you and I, at the age that we're at, at the end of the day, you wake up and say, what is going to drive me? And it's like, I just want to be healthy. I want to be healthy. Wellness. Because I enjoy life, and it's like I want to get the most out every day. And when I want to do something, I don't want to be hindered, and I don't want to worry about not healthy. So when it comes to the food part of that, I think we've, as an industry, kind of grabbed onto this idea that we want to be better at what we do. And I agree with that. Like, there's always room to be better. There's always room to be more efficient. I mean, efficiency has always been part of our mantra as when we look at solutions, as are they more efficient than what we're currently doing? But at the same time, can they actually connect back to societies, in a way that's positive, make better food? So when we look at Astera and Crystal Green, it kind of for us was one of the first initiatives where we're like, we are truly connecting all the way through from cleaning up what is a perceived waste. Phosphorus in wastewater is it is a waste. And yet we also knew phosphorus in life was essential to life on Earth. We can't live without phosphorus. Nothing on this earth that's alive cannot live without phosphorus. So this whole circular economy, if we could actually take a waste, move it back into growing more food, and say it back in the day, call it 7-8 years ago, it was one of the first that we actually said, this is truly sustainable. This is truly good for society. Everybody wins. If we clean up a waste and we end up growing more food, who loses in that scenario? No, nobody. Nobody loses in that scenario. Everybody wins. And I think that's, for people don't even get it. They get that. They get that. Yeah, this makes sense. We're cleaning up a waste and we're growing more food. Everybody wins. So for us, it was our first opportunity to actually not just help growers be better at what they do, but it actually give growers a voice. It gave growers a voice to say, we're doing our part. And at the same time, if we put it in the right spot agronomically, it became a better source of phosphorus for plants. And so we were getting more phosphorus into the plant and not being left for environmental loss. And so as we mature in our business, that was one of the things that allowed us to start gravitating into the space of being sustainable. And as we stand today, pretty much everything we do has a feel or a conductivity to society, like where, there's nothing we do that isn't better than something else in the market. It is more sustainable. And that's part of our mantra today. Does it actually fit that? If it does, I'd be happy to have this conversation go to anybody in society and say, yeah, we are doing our part to not just grow more food, but also be good for the earth. Societally speaking, we want to be doing our part, not taken away from it. So
isn't that an interesting journey where you just started out wanting to sell some shit and here you are, you're 38.
Yeah, I am.
And
a young looking 38. Yeah.
Thanks to the hyperbaric chamber and a healthy diet or whatever in your fitness regime. But how old are you, Craig, by the way?
I'm 48. Yes.
You're 48.
Yes.
We're the same age. So
yeah.
I think we, exactly. I think we share that sentiment now where it's like, holy shit, you spend the first half kind of breaking things down and going as fast as you can. Now this last half, it's like, hey man, let's see how long we can make this thing go and how good we can feel in the process. I think most people's regret, maybe amongst others at the end of life, is you didn't take better care of your Ferrari, your God-given Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
So you started out my point is you started out just wanting to sell stuff. But as you got older, the company's maturing, you're maturing, the product, the society's maturing. It's one of the best things if you could actually sell something that like every unit of that widget is actually a cause for good and not like subtracting from or contributing to issues, I think that's a really cool place to be.
Yeah, I think yes, 100% it is. I mean, it's, you always, when it's all said and done, if you want to be known for something, you say, well, we left a positive impact on society. We left a positive impact on agriculture. We truly believe 23 years in, agriculture will never be the same based on some of the things that we were a part of over that time. But on the go forward, what gets you up in the morning, keeps you going. To me, it's giving growers a stronger voice and still helping them be more successful on a daily basis and appeasing the logistics. It's and there's so much out there. Like there's some brilliant minds working on all kinds of things. Like it's hard to believe how much stuff is
overwhelming. Eh?
Yeah, that could be coming our way, coming the way of agriculture that 10 years from now, it will not look the same. It won't. And you need to be in a space. You need to be in a space where people are having success, though, because if they're just struggling to survive, it's really tough to make good decisions or innovative decisions. You have to have a market that's actually having success. And I think agriculture's been fortunate to have some pretty good years that will allow us to continue to innovate and take on new things. Because if you're starving and nothing's going your way, you're just trying to get by. And that's maybe we'll get back there. Hopefully not, but that's I think if we stay on the path we're on, we'll continue to see the best growers figure it out. They will. They are.
I think there's a lot of abundance ahead in agriculture, and yet I think we can recognize that we're moving into some more difficult times than we've had. I don't want to say it's been easy to farm in the last couple of years, but certainly you could sort of throw a stone and hit something profitable. I know on our farm, anyways. That's changing. What do you see going forward here? What's most on your mind going into 2024, the next 3 to 5 years, kind of thing?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think margins are going to be tighter than they have been the last 2 or 3 years. But I would encourage any grower, any retailer, any consultant to think differently. Just because times are good, you can't sit there and assume they'll always be good. Continue to look at new initiatives, new mindsets, new strategies, new solutions, because if you're constantly thinking that way, I think it'll allow you to be at the front edge of the curve. And we can't say where things are going to go, but if you're constantly looking for ways to be better, do better, I think it always leaves you on the front edge, however that may be. This in a tighter year, I go back to the start of our business, and when it's tight, those are maybe the best opportunities to take on something. Maybe not the whole farm, but try some different things. And we have the technology today to sift through success or failure pretty quickly at the grower level. The technology that they have on their seeders and sprayers and combines, we can put the right product in the right spot, or we can figure out where it works best in the certain areas of a field. And so our fast track to making decisions is way, way, way quicker than it was even 10 years ago. So if you're sitting idle, you're probably in a tough spot. If you're looking to adopt some new strategies or some new initiatives or products, then I'd say those are the growers that will find their way through maybe the softer times or the softer days in agriculture. And we're in a spot of the world where we're not making any more land. And land's not cheap. So how do we get the most out of it? I mean, it includes understanding things like salinity. It includes understanding things like biology now, where it's, there's pros and cons to everything, right? So it's how do we get all these systems working together to extract that next bushel or two that we believe to be there? We just got to find a way to get it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. As you're talking, I'm thinking how, survival of the fittest. And the reality is, the tighter the margins, the more the need for innovation. If everything's ducky and, we can easily make that margin, that gross margin, you probably don't feel quite as strong the urge to innovate to survive. And I think we see that where margins are thinner, the innovation is greater. What have you seen in the evolution of the retail market? You get your products to market through retailers. That's been a highly evolving situation. We always got these new crops of independent retailers coming up and then getting sold off to the big boys. And what have you seen in the last couple decades in that front?
Probably the word I'd use is it's ever evolving, right? It seems like there's been lots of change, but I would say there is absolutely a need. When you look at, it's not going away. There's a multitude of things that maybe the retailer today isn't the same as it was 20 years ago, but if they can find ways, just like us, if they can find ways to bring value to a customer base, then they will have success in business. And today it's some of the logistics of it all. I would have said 20 years ago, the fertilizer industry was 4 products. Today, the fertilizer space is 10 and 12. And so if you're sitting there with 4 products, you're probably not as appealing to a progressive group of growers in your market. But if you're prepared to handle 3 different phosphates and 3 different nitrogens, and you got more than one sulfur option, or you carrying, all of a sudden it's like you become more customizable to a grower. It's having access to supply in the last 2 or 3 years has been valuable because some of these things have been hard to get. And
Right.
And yet service to me, I mean, even for the larger growers, you'd say it's, larger growers have become more independent, like in their thinking and ability to service their needs for their farm. But to me, service never does go out of style. Like if you're prepared to ask your grower what they need and what they need to be effective and efficient, I think retailers that are focused on servicing their customer are still going to be valuable in the equation. So it's changed, but I can't say that there's less retails. Maybe there should be. Maybe the big one, they're consolidating and covering a broader swath of acres out of, maybe 1 or 2 locations. But
is there a fit for these online platforms, or how do they play into your scheme?
Yeah, is that a loaded question, or is that a?
I'm not trying to be controversial. This happens naturally. I don't know. I'm curious because, I think it has a fit, but I don't think it's like overwhelmingly one or the other, like we sort of thought when they first emerged. I mean, I think there's a place for it, but I also think there's like extreme limitations, and there'll always be both. Kind of like I sometimes get stuff off Amazon. Sometimes I go to the local Walmart, and sometimes I go to a boutique shop, and sometimes,
right.
You just walk around and not buy anything.
Yeah. It's maybe, I think maybe
you don't have to answer this. If you want to plead the fifth, we'll give it to you.
It's a great question. I think I think your immediate thought is you go to the general consumer. Like you think it's all the same, and it should be, because we're all consumers too. Like if I'm farming, I'm also a consumer. So you say I'm looking for simplicity in the simple things in my life. And, maybe that's where the online thing has gained traction, is in something that's maybe a little more commoditized. Are you prepared to make the decision without actually touching and feeling it? And yet, and there's some of that of agriculture could be put into that category. But the more detailed we get with agriculture, like it's almost like the more touch and feel we kind of need. If we want to take it from a commoditized, we're just growing commoditized crops. We want to get into specific crops with specific customers and end users, and quality becomes a thing. I would say it actually requires more thought, more detail, and maybe some of the progressive growers aren't prepared to do that by clicking a button. They want to have somebody that's prepared to work with them to be able to see their way through that touch and feel experience. And there's then the scale of it all too. The scale of it all. And a lot of this stuff is, especially in the fertilizer world, it needs the logistics figured out. It needs to be brought into, today, especially for us and a lot of people in the space, it's a world business. It's an absolute world business, right? So it's like we're bringing products from the other side of the world. And if we don't have the infrastructure to make all that work and get it to the market, the buy now button probably isn't there yet, because it's just, we just need a whole bunch of
easy button.
Yeah. Infrastructure to make that all get right to the farm gate. Right. So it's like I said, though, disruption is, we think it happens overnight. It's probably an 8 to 10 year process to find something that finds us all the way through to full change and commercial acceptance. It's like pod shatter canola has been around for 12, 13 years. I don't know, maybe not how long. But in the early days, not everybody jumped on. Not everybody sold their swat. It took years to actually people to believe that they could straight cut canola. And so, are we at the early days of online buying in agriculture? Yeah, we are. Will it change overnight? No, it won't. Will there be some things that become like commoditized, where it's like I'm buying, whatever, you're fine buying your yogurt from Amazon because it's the same yogurt you've bought for 10 years. And that's,
Yeah.
but yeah, change is inevitable. Agriculture is a little bit different beast. It's got scale, it's got size, and if we do our job, yeah, we think there's more touch and feel and personalization to be had moving forward to make growers more dynamic and unique, that allows them to tell better stories and find unique customers that want what they're doing. That's the beauty of the conductivity of the world we have it, if you can leverage it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can offer value online, and a lot of people can get exposed to your story in a very short time.
Yeah.
What have you learned by working with Terry from Aberhart Farms on his farm?
Yeah, it's funny, it's some of these relationships that you establish in your lifetime, right? It's sometimes you're attracted to different personalities. Sometimes it's people that you connect with on certain levels. I mean, I've always been attracted to Terry's inquisitive nature, like as a farmer, an entrepreneur, like somebody that's just never, it's every time I talk to him, and it might be a year between conversations, it's like, what are you doing now? It's just like, oh, geez, I can't even get my head to go there. But it's, there's always been that call it trust in the belief that we're kind of working towards similar goals, and we want to be better at what we do, and both what we do for a living in our lives. And yet he's probably 10 steps ahead of me when it comes to technology and innovation and actually applying it to the land. Right. So it's, I've always had that trust. If he's doing it, it's got to be legit. Or if he's trying it, and whatever happens with the result, take it for face value, because it's probably being done the right way and followed through. So, there's a handful of people that are very inquisitive and leaders in the space, and I would put Terry in that category, where it's just like, it's like he's inquisitive, I'm naive. So it's like I'm leveraging being naive, he's leveraging being inquisitive to actually find a way to be better and different moving forward.
Oh, it's been awesome to see him collaborate with folks like yourself, and it's sort of a positive feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
And he's giving you feedback. You guys are using it to improve what you do and find out what works. And it's always been good that way. I know the farm's had a great relationship with Taurus over the years, and we really appreciate that. And I know Terry's big on working with the right suppliers and relationships and all that. Speaking of which, we got this Convergence conference coming up that's being put on by Convergence Growth, Warren Bills and Terry Aberhart. At the heart of it is there's an accelerator company there that's been working with precision AI and now, pristine ingredients, and there's lots of cool things. And then there's the peer group of agronomists, which is the holdover from the AgriTrend group of folks. And then, they're forming something new at Ag Intelligence. We're all getting together in Regina, February 6th to 8th, 2024 at the Doubletree in Regina. It's a very exotic location. For February. Not quite like Hawaii. You were mentioning you're going to Hawaii, but Taurus has been very supportive of that initiative, that new event. It's very much appreciated. It's a brand new event. I think it's going to bring together a lot of great folks like yourself in the network, in the agriculture community. Why were you guys excited to sponsor it? I know you have a couple of different folks speaking at that event. Maybe you could talk about that, but why did you feel it was a good fit for Taurus to be part of that and bring some intellectual knowledge and some sponsorship?
Yeah, anytime you can get some, I call it brilliant minds together, there's always something to be gained individually. I think events like this, we've had events like this through the years, and I think the drawback to something to bring cool individuals, outside the box thinkers together is we don't do enough of it. Actually, it's kind of funny when you're kind of on the edge where we are in our business. a lot of our success has been surrounding ourselves with people that think differently or are prepared to push the envelope to failure, right? I mean, those are the people that find success. And so events like this, we're kind of like a consumer, like we're excited about the networking, people that you don't get to see every day, that you can have some great conversations with, and what they're doing today, what they're focused on, where they're headed. And another opportunity for us to maybe bring some of the folks that we work with on a regular basis in to expose the rest of the group to some new mindsets or some new thoughts on what the future could be, or potentially has the ability to be. And so, yeah, obviously I mentioned Mike Dolinsky, who we've worked with for 5, 6, 7 years. Mike is a unique individual. It's hard, it's like I'm passionate. I love what we do, and like I said, I could still have a fork in my hand, but Mike wants to have the next thing in his hand. He wants to know what the future is of agriculture. And 50 some years into his career, and Marna keeps saying, Mike, you got to slow down, but Mike just keeps wanting to be a part of what's next, what's new. He loves the connection of the group that he's built over the years with very smart people, and he's one of them, right? So Mike will be speaking at the event, which is great, and he's always a crowd favorite because he's very relatable in his approach. And yeah, we're glad to have him around. He's been a great asset for what we do at Taurus, and everybody loves him, and he's way smarter than all of us combined. So it's you constantly challenge.
He is, and he keeps moving around with his disciplines. He seems to learn a new thing every time I run into him.
Yeah, he's really interesting.
Human health has been a big part of what he's been focused on lately too.
Yeah,
so I think is very interesting.
Him and I have, a group of us have really connected that, there's no difference between plants and humans, right? If our business is built on making plants better, then why aren't we doing that the same with ourselves, right? So he's, call it, he's into his 70s and probably as healthy as anybody you'd know, but he's very focused on that conductivity. When he talks about a plant, he's also talking about himself, and it's kind of a cool way to train and educate society if you kind of talk like plants and humans are very similar, right? So
that might be how he got so smart. I know he gave my mother a book called Better Brain, and she gave it to me too. But really what goes into our bodies as far as nutrients goes has a huge impact, not only on our physiological well-being, but I think our ability to perform mentally.
Yeah.
Getting those right nutrients into the noggin, if you will.
And if we could actually get to a point where we're actually connecting that, where the crops we grow actually are providing us the right level of nutrition that we need, and say, well, we've got this thing full circle. I'm not saying we're there yet, but if that's the path we want to be on, we are. Then society should be better, right? Society should care about agriculture because they're working on doing things that make us better people, healthier people, right?
And you're bringing in another scientist, Dr. Parameshwarman. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that properly, but she's going to be talking about metagenomic soil testing as well. What the heck is metagenomic soil testing?
Yeah.
Now, what's going on?
Yeah, Dr. Purnima, with Trace Genomics, we actually just came on board with Trace in August to help deliver their technology to Canada this past August. And so she is the president and one of the founders of Trace. And so they are actually bringing what they would call metagenomics, which is basically a full spectrum, unhindered DNA sequencing of the living soil. And so they are leveraging technology that's really been developed for human science. So here we are having this conversation again about humans and agriculture, but yeah, they are taking human science and delivering that to agriculture in sequencing the living soil with metagenomics. So it's you send your soil away just like you would normally for a regular chemistry soil test, but now they actually have the ability to measure every single DNA strand that's in that bag of dirt, and then whatever markers are on that strand, they're going to put it into a category, or they're going to put it into a specific envelope of a pathogen or a good biological or, something that's been categorized. So today, when we look at the future of agriculture, one thing that we're trying to figure out is the actual living soil. And they have spent 9 years in the US developing their technology. So it's not new. Today they have 52 million acres benchmarked in the US. And so we're actually now bringing that to Canada, where we'll be able to tell you, whatever pathogen you're worried about, we'll be able to tell you what it is and at what concentration. We'll be able to tell you things like how much rhizobium you have, how much mycorrhizae you have. We'll be able to tell you how much G-race enzyme you have, or Nitromonas or Nitrobacter bacteria. All with the idea that the more informed you are on your whole soil, not just the chemistry, the better the decisions you will make. And that might be changing your rotation. You say, well, I was going to grow peas, but I didn't know how much Aphanomyces I had, so I didn't grow peas. I went to a 7-year rotation. Now we're going to tell you exactly how much Aphanomyces you have in every field. It'll go from variety selection to where it's like, oh, I was going to grow the latest new variety from BASF, but I didn't realize that I had blackleg. And so now I got to grow a blackleg variety that has some resistance to that strain I have. And so all of a sudden the decisions change, and I think it's going to allow growers to be better at what they do. I think it brings a level of sustainability like we've never seen in the world of chemistries, picking the right fungicidal seed treatments, making sure we're managing our nitrogen on fields that need it managed more, looking at things like phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, better understanding phosphorus availability in fields that we were trying to use the metrics we had available to us. Now we're going to leverage biology into that equation to say, well, how much gets converted? What's the biological concentration in these fields? And so I do believe once we understand this information, and I'll give Trace credit, they've built a portal, like the ability to view all this information in a simplified format. Once we have it, and once we find ways to use it in decision making, we will never go back. We just absolutely won't go back to not wanting to know. And so it's mind blowing what they're doing. And Dr. Purnima is at the forefront. She's the person that founded the business, and brilliant mind that is changing agriculture forever. It'll never go back to the way it was before with what she's bringing to the space that we're in. So it's pretty cool.
Pandora's box.
It is Pandora's box. Yeah, it's pretty cool that she's making the trip to Regina to talk to an innovative crowd. And yeah, she's one of the smart people of the world. There's no doubt.
That's going to be awesome. I really appreciate you guys are bringing not only some intellect, but some sponsorship, the kind of thing that makes those kind of events possible. And I think it's going to be a really good event that's going to evolve over the years into something really special. So thanks for that, Craig. And I guess final question. If we were to do this podcast again in 3 years, what has to have happened for you to feel like you were successful? I'm sure you're one of those guys, every time you reach, a momentary pause of like, hey, I might have even today I was trying to prompt you, like, look at all your wins, but you're always thinking about the next thing and how to do it better. But if we're meeting here in 3 years, what has to have happened for you to feel like your success and the company's moved in the direction you want it to go as president?
Yeah, another good question, Dan. You got a box full of them there this Christmas season.
I paid big bucks for that one, by the way. That's all strategic coach, so it's cost me a lot of money.
Yeah. I think any company, any business that's been around, you got to continue to look to the future, right? I mean, it's you can enjoy the successes you have, but only for a little period of time, and you gotta lock in on what the future looks like and try to navigate all the variables that probably are going to come your way in business and in the market that you're in. And it's agriculture, so it can change outside of our control. But we're constantly looking 3 years out, sometimes 5. It's tough to look 5 years out. So I don't know how people do it, but it's for 3 years. I'd say, yeah, you know what, we believe if we actually the agronomic solutions we have on our plate today, if we can find another 10% of the market taking on some of those agronomic solutions and we put them in the right spot, I believe we will bring billions of dollars of value at the grower level in the next 3 years, not millions, billions. And, and it's right there. That's us taking on nothing new. That's just taking on what we currently have. You look at this trace, if we have the ability just in its infancy to start mapping out the marketplace where we will know the hot spots of where diseases are and where the opportunities are to change our fertility program basis, concentrations of good biology. No longer will we be saying 3 years from now, use our product, trust us. It's just science. It's just science, trust your DNA, trust your soil to make sure you're putting the right products in the right place. And I think we have that opportunity to get, it's hard to believe, but as salesy as I can be on certain days, it's like, I love the idea that we can just gravitate back to making sure growers that have the baseline information are going to put the right products in the right spot. And we're going to leverage technology to allow us to get there. So we're not short of growing. We have lots of opportunity. I think most people would agree that a lot of challenge in growth is people still. Like we don't have the easy button. We need good people to actually carry the same message, have the same passion, and want to work with people that want to be outside the box. And they're out there. We just got to find them. And so we want to continue to pursue what we're doing, have more people share that experience with us, have a culture that we're fundamentally changing agriculture. It'll never be the same when we're done. And that could all happen in the next 3 years. I know that sounds lofty.
Sounds exhausting.
Why not? Why not shoot big?
The great bull can never rest.
Yeah.
The great bull can never rest. I'm sure that's why you named it Taurus, because bulls are always striking up with their horns, not like the bear striking down with their claws. Very cool, man. Well, I feel like there's a whole bunch of other stuff we could have touched on and could have kept going for a long time, but we probably should talk another time on the podcast. But I appreciate you coming on, and I got to say, you're somebody that I always admire, not only for your business acumen, but for your character. You're a very humble dude. You'll probably be back shoveling shit one day, in your retirement, just enjoying that. You're a true farm kid at heart.
Yeah.
And I know that you've also, helped out Aberhart Farms a lot, with the products and in your relationship and the partnership there. So I appreciate that. But I definitely got to say, as Aberhart Ag, definitely someone that I look up to. You and your company, the folks at at your team. It's a real inspiration of what can be done in the market, and I hope we get to bring a whole bunch of more cool stuff to the market, like you guys are doing long term as we grow. So I always looked up to you, and so it's fun to talk to you on the podcast in that regard.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate you having us on. And there's I think there's always a mutual respect and the way you approach life and approach business and, tackle things head on, right? I mean, if you get there, you will find success regardless of what you're doing or what products, you got on the shelf. And, I commend you for even, this approach to reaching out to a broader market that you don't know is there or not. I think as long as you're creating a platform for people to tell their stories and change mindsets, you're always going to connect or find somebody that it brings value to, right? And I think that's the world we live in today. It's a lot of times people are finding value with other people they don't even know, but they've connected somehow socially. And why not, right? Why not meet the market where it's at, right? And that's definitely, I'd say this is where the market is at today. So good on you. We commend you.
Appreciate that. And one thing I really like and respect about you guys as well is this whole connection to human health. And I know you've talked on it. I know you've presented at some events that we've been involved with before. I think Growing the Future back at the Farm Forum thing. But I was going to encourage you too to tell Mike to bring the thunder on the human health connection. I personally really enjoy that. And And I hope that a lot of producers our age too are starting to think about not only like financial health of the farm and succession planning and iron purchases and all that, but start thinking about, their own health and how, the health of their soil and their plants and their produce can really relate to filling the gap and what nutrients are needed for people to be super healthy in their life on every level. I think that's really exciting stuff and huge opportunity. Like, we'll talk about pristine ingredients. A whole bunch of your products and practices could fit into that. I mean, that's exciting stuff, man. That'll be a big theme of the conference, is pristine ingredients.
Yeah. I do think I could be wrong, but I do believe, like, I think as an agriculture industry, we're trying to find ways to connect us to society, and I do think there's one piece that's universal, and that is human health. Like, that is absolutely, whether you're and maybe we could be better, because I mean, if our core customers are dead, then they're no longer customers. So we need to
keep your customer alive.
Yeah, we need to.
That's a repeat customer when they're alive.
We're talking to people about growing healthy plants. At the same time, we should be making that connection to themselves, right? Because it's like,
I think so.
We want our customers to be as healthy as they can be. And if they're healthy, they're probably thinking clearer, they're thinking more dynamically. They're eliminating some stress or anxiety in their life. And, that a lot of that comes back to what you put in your body. And, I think that's a major concern of society as a whole today, is that,
Huge.
if we're not putting the right things in, it changes the chemistry of how our mind works and how we operate. And, there's a definite conductivity piece there that we believe in. Mike is the leader of that charge, but I think that messaging goes far and wide for sure. So,
yeah, I think that you guys are spearheading that whole circular message of health, and we want to be a part of that too. So it's fun. I really like what you guys are doing. So thanks, Craig, and we will see you for sure at the Convergence Conference. In February. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, appreciate it. Looking forward to a face-to-face.
Yeah, it's going to be nice in person.
Yes. Good.
Right on, man. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate having us on.